Good morning, everyone. This is Tony from Her Homestead Skills, and it feels like forever since I made a video, but it's only been a few days. And obviously during that time, most of you are aware, if you've been following, that Mark and I did take a trip to Ottawa, and that was an interesting trip, to say the least. But prior to that trip, he had heard about a gathering in at Vaughan Mills. That's right, Vaughan Mills, Ontario. And that was a convoy that was headed on its way to Ottawa, and that was would be stopping at Vaughan Mills on Thursday. So we did take a run out there on Thursday, and Vaughan Mills, one of the stores, and as a matter of fact, one of the stores that was actually open to the parking lot where the truckers or where people were meeting, was Bass Pro. And I have to give kudos to Bass Pro. They were awesome people. It was a bitter cold evening, and they opened the doors. There was a girl at the door she did have a mask on, although I'll admit a lot of the people that walked into that store that night did not have masks, and there was no issues in that regard. The young lady said, "Welcome, come on in, get warm." And I just thought that that was absolutely amazing for her to take that attitude, well, for the company to take that attitude. It was very wise of them, actually. And everyone got to use their bathrooms, which is kind of a necessity sometimes. So I do recall standing in line. I was too bitterly cold, so I probably spent more time in the store than I did outside. I'm one of those people who just don't do well in the cold, and I was in line for the washrooms with, and the lineup was fairly long for the girls' washrooms. Anyway, I was in line with two young women who had small children with them, and yes, there were a lot of children in that crowd that day, and both of whom, their husbands had lost their jobs over mandates. One had been employed for 6 years at a firm, and I didn't pry to ask what kind of business they were in or what kind of job and what the reasons were, but apparently both of them had husbands who had lost their jobs, and one was 20 years at one firm, the other one was 6 years at one firm. And this is what people are dealing with on an everyday basis. And one of the ladies' comments to me was, it's not a matter of mask or no mask, or unvaxxed or vaxxed. That's a way to divide people and treat us all very poorly. Everyone should have a choice. It's a matter of a choice, not a matter of someone to decide for you. And I agree with that. It is come to the point now where we've done everything we're supposed to do for 2 years, and it just isn't changing, isn't going away. It's just as soon as you think that things are getting better, they slap another. You know, they'll loosen things up for a week or two, and then they tighten them back up again. That has been the example here in Ontario. So, yeah, we stood in line and chatted, and once again I have to give credit to Bass Pro. Amazing company, and I think that everyone should shop there. So the next day that evening we packed up and decided that we were going to get to Ottawa before the convoy, because if we didn't do that, we might not get to our hotel rooms, and there was always the worry that that was the case. And one of the young ladies in the lineup as well, she said her and her husband and children were also going, and yes, if they had to stay in their cars, if they couldn't make it to their hotel room, they would end up staying in their cars. And I thought, oh, that's bitter cold to be in a car with children, and wish them the best of luck, and yes, get there early. Anyway, Mark and I did get there early. I would have liked to have made a stop here or there, but he was more concerned about not being able to make it to the hotel room, so we drove straight through. And when we did find the hotel room, we were only about 5 blocks away from downtown, so we were definitely walking distance there. And the convoy hadn't arrived. Well, there were a few that had, but the main convoy had not arrived, so we had no difficulties getting to our hotel room. And the hotel staff was friendly enough. We managed to, they recommended that we just park our car and not move it the whole time we were there, because we may not find the parking spot when we came back. So best just to park the car for the duration and walk, and that's what we had intended to do anyway. So definitely that hotel is probably, as well as every other hotel, was booked solid that weekend. And I did hear noises from the mayor that he, the mayor of Ottawa, that we had all made our point, now it's time to go home. That they didn't want their town disrupted anymore. They wanted life to get back to normal. And I thought, how hypocritical can you be? You want things to get back to normal for you, but for the rest of us, you don't even hear yourself. You're tone deaf. You don't hear what you're saying. What do you think all these people that came here are looking for? They're looking for lives to get back to normal. They want to open their businesses. Yes, there were businesses that shut down in Ottawa, and there was a large mall that was totally shut down, and on a personal level, I believe that was to drive people home. If you had a hotel room, you certainly had access to a washroom, and if you did not, the malls would be one place where you could access that, but they shut that down to the public. So it was not what I would call a welcoming environment. They did everything they could to drive us out. Some of the comments from the media were outrageous, or quite the spin. If they, if the most negative comments they could find was that somebody had draped a flag on the statue of Terry Fox and disrespected Terry Fox in doing so, my thought to that was, well, perhaps you ought to be careful what you say, because disrespecting the people that bring you food is probably a little bit more important than a stone statue. And if you're going to disregard and disrespect them, I think that draping a flag over Terry Fox was a minor undertaking. And I understand that it was the truckers who cleaned that up. There was also some noises about the tomb of the unknown soldier being danced upon. Once again, it's all the negative media attention, not the positive. And I am not aware, nor did I see any a video that would support anyone dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier or defecating on it, which is another comment that was made by the media. I also understand that it was the truckers who cleaned up any garbage that was left there. So there could definitely have been provocateurs in the crowd. No doubt that there was one person with a Nazi flag, and there was one person with a Confederate flag. Out of the thousands and thousands that were there, and of course those were the ones that the mainstream media decided was worthy of attention. They were told that they would not be heard, that they were a minority. I mean, there we were, the basket of deplorables all over again. And that will have its own repercussions. So what happens now? Well, a lot of us have gone home. And yeah, I couldn't take the cold. If it had been the summer, I would have probably stayed a little longer if I could, but the cold was just too bitter for me. You know, even Mark struggled with it, and he can deal with it a lot better than I can. It doesn't matter how warmly I dressed and how many layers I put on, it was too cold for me. So I told him next time, remind me never to agree to go out when it's 15, 20 below, to stand outside, because I can't do it. But it was worthwhile going to this trip, and I have to admit that the U.S. media seems to have a more fair representation of what's going on. Apparently the U.S. media is watching this very closely. I've seen more comments from I've seen more exposure on U.S. news than I have on the Canadian news. Okay, so what happens now? Well, Trudeau has vowed that he will not come out and meet with these people. If they were somebody he agreed with, like BLM, he would have met with them. Interesting comment from our Prime Minister. Yeah, very interesting comment. So, what happens now? Well, what happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object? I've heard one of the truckers say, well, summer's coming, they'll be able to pull out their lawn chairs very soon. They're in it for the long haul. I think they understand that it has to end. And when it comes to the irresistible force, it would appear as though this force is gaining strength, even with all the opposition. I was hoping to take a drive down to Nova Scotia this summer when things warmed up, and take a look and see if that was someplace we might want to move to retire to. But after what I have heard about what Nova Scotia has done, they've outlawed people going out to meet the trucks and support them. So I thought, well, no, this is not the kind of place I want to be at. They're even worse than Ontario. So, not happy with Nova Scotia. Alberta is, well, there's another convoy of trucks blocking the border in Alberta. Okay, that's what they want to do. Go for it. In Saskatchewan, the premier of Saskatchewan has decided that he will remove all mandates by the end of the month. So there's the first one. Let's hope a few more follow. I also understand that the organizers of this event are meeting with their counterparts in the U.S., the truckers in the U.S., because they are under the same mandate from Biden that truckers are under Trudeau here. So perhaps by the end of February that they will join the Canadian truckers in this effort. Now I know that we get a lot of food from California, perhaps even from Mexico, and that would have to come by trucks across the states and across our borders. But definitely I believe we get a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables from California, and perhaps Florida as well. I'm not up on all that detail, but I also know that a lot of our lumber goes down south, so the U.S. will, I mean, if they aren't crossing both ways, both countries are suffering. So there is incentive for all of this to go away. And what is really, really sad is for the last 2 years, the truckers have been allowed to move freely across the border with no hindrance and move goods and services, and they were our heroes and they were our frontline workers. And now, when everything should be coming to an end, they just one last stab at making people's lives an absolute hell. So where will this end? I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think it will end. I think that it's just gaining steam. And I understand that there is another event for downtown Toronto this weekend. And perhaps we'll attend that one as well. So anyway, this is Tony from Her Homestead Skills. I'm glad to be back. And I have to admit that there are some of us who cannot grow all our own food. We don't have the land to have animals, therefore cannot grow our own meat. So we still depend on grocery stores, even though I may have a pantry stocked with things that I'm okay for the next whatever term, and don't fear lack of food or lack of resources in the immediate future. This is bound to have repercussions for the supply chain in many different aspects. Hopefully, empty grocery stores is not one of them. I still depend on the grocery stores. So that means I still depend on the truck drivers to bring the food to me. So, self-sufficient? No. Absolutely not. Let's support our truckers.